This is a tutorial on how to loom a crocodile stitch, which is normally done in crochet. Here is an example of what it looks like with a consistent pattern. We're going to do 3 different edges, and this is the triangle edge, which you can see as you pull it back what it looks like. And if you flip it over to the other side, you'll notice that it's smooth and flat. And I'm going to show 3 different examples of 3 different edges, which is the triangle and a round edge and a rectangular edge. And we're going to do this exampling on the flower loom. And I've already done a cast on, and I'm going to start off with the triangular edge. We'll be working with 3 pegs. What you want to do is knit or E-wrap 3 pegs for 2 rows. So there's row 1, and there's row 2. Then you want to knit or E-wrap 2 pegs, then knit 1, then knit and E-wrap 2 pegs. Then you want to knit or E-wrap 3 pegs for 2 rows, and you've just created a scale that's triangular edged. Now what you want to do here is you want to pull up your original loops, and you follow the next loop in line with what's lifted. So technically it's lifted there. If you follow it, you'll find the lifted loop, pull it back on like this, and now you have 2 loops on those pegs. Keep them, don't do anything with them. They're going to do the round edge next. And we're going to work with 4 pegs, and we're going to knit or E-wrap those 4 pegs for 2 rows. Now it's in here, these 2 rows. If you want longer scales, this is where you would increase, add 2 rows to this on either side. Anywhere that you have that. Now you're going to E-wrap or knit 3, then E-wrap or knit 2, and then E-wrap or knit 3, and then E-wrap or knit 4 pegs for 2 rows. And if you want it longer, you add 2 rows to this side as well. It works that way for all of them if you want them longer. Okay, next you want to pull your original loops back onto the peg. So follow the next peg line, and as you can see, it's lifted. Put it back on. Follow the next one. Put it back on. Follow the next one. Put it on. And the last one. And next we're going to work the rectangular edge, which we're going to work with 3 pegs. And you're going to knit 3 pegs for 9 rows. This is one of the easiest. Or you can do 2 pegs for 9 rows if you want one a little thinner. But we're going to do 3 pegs for 9 rows. Back and forth. This one's probably one of the easiest. My plan is for when I go to make my line, I'm going to use this edge for its main. But I'll probably only do 2 pegs rather than the 3. And for the round edge, I'm going to add that to my owl hat that I'm working on later in the year. And go to the next peg and find your original loop and pull it onto your peg. Go to the next one. And the next one. Okay. I'm going to finish the row up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit or E-wrap 3 straight rows. And the first straight row you're going to do, you're going to toss over both those loops, as you can see what I'm doing here. And that brings the 2 ends together so that you keep a smooth back. And that's your first, going to be your first set of rows, or your first set of scales. After this, I'm going to show you how to stagger your scales and explain how to stagger them. So it takes 4 rows to create 1 row of scales. Alright, here's how we're going to do it. Next we're going to learn how to stagger our scales. We're going to have to do it a little differently than we would if we were doing just the triangular stitch, because we're working with the round edge. But for now we're going to skip the first 2 so that we can work our triangular edge next. And the concept is to try to figure out where the middle is going to need to be. So there's a point there, and you have 3, and of course that one's easy. There's the middle. So do your technique like you did before. Knit or E-wrap 2 rows, knit or E-wrap 2 pegs, then 1 peg, then 2 pegs, then 3 pegs for 2 rows. And what you're going to do is you're going to figure out where your center is, and you're going to go over how many it would take to put your point to the center between the next 2 scales. So for 3, if you're going to do a consistent 3, it's going to be 1 end to stagger it. If you're going to do 4, it's going to be 2 in, and if you're going to do 5, it's going to be 3 in, which you can do 5. Go ahead and pull your original loops back onto the pegs. I'll also say if you choose to E-wrap this stitch rather than knit, you'll see the results of what you're doing a lot faster. Now we're going to work the round edge with the next 4 and repeat the round edge just as you did before. Knit or E-wrap 4 pegs, 2 rows, knit or E-wrap 3 pegs, knit or E-wrap 2 pegs, knit or E-wrap 3 pegs, and then knit or E-wrap 4 pegs for 2 rows. Again, I'm planning on using the round edge for the realistic owl hat I'm working on. And I'm planning on using the rectangular edge for the lion, so those should add some really interesting effects. Again, if you're staggering the 4, you want to go 2 in before starting the next set. Find your original loops, pull them back. If you don't get it even, it's okay, but you want to go further back than you would think so that you don't have too little space in between. If you do this stitch enough, you'll get it to where it's nice and clean. Okay, and repeat your rectangular edge, and to stagger it, it's going to work the same as if you did the triangular edge. You go in 1 before starting the scales. If you choose to do 2, it's still in 1. Yeah, go ahead and knit 3 pegs, 9 rows. And on the ends like that, to bring the original stitch, you'll go to the previous loop to find the original stitch to help. Now, if you're a beginner loomer, I would not suggest trying this stitch. If you've been looming for a while, definitely give this a try, particularly if you like the look. Alright, go ahead and E-wrap or knit 3 straight rows. And I'm going to do this 2 more times and cast it off. But go ahead and do that, and this is the basis of your scales. So if you do decide to use this stitch in a project, you're going from the beginning of the video to this point pretty much, and you repeat over and over again. Hardest part is pulling the original loops back onto the pegs, but it saves you from trying to have to sew up the scales. I base this concept off of my animal ears, my stuffed animal ears. Well, that's your basic concept. I'm going to do this a couple more times, and then we'll show you what the pattern looks like. And just go back around and do it the way you started, and I'll show you what it looks like. Because I knitted it, you're going to have to start pulling on the garment. If you E-wrap, you shouldn't have to do this. So start pulling the knit so you can start seeing exactly what it looks like. My suggestion is, if you're going to try this for the first time, do it with an E-wrap. It's going to be easier to find your original loops and everything to put on. And you don't have to do this, you can just see what it looks like. So once you're done there, you can see the edges quite clearly now. You can see the round edge and you can see the triangular edge and how there's a point to it. You can also see the rectangular edge and what it does. And you can see that they're staggered. There's the back. It's nice and smooth and flat. And that's the rectangular pattern separated so that you can see it. And there's the round edge so you can see it a little better. Again, if you want the scales to be longer, you add more to the base rows when you're creating them. So you have the knit for 2 rows or E-wrap for 2 rows, you add 2 more rows to each side. And that gives you a longer scale. This was done on a longer scale so you can see what it looks like, but it's the triangular edge. And as you can see, it's smooth on both sides. You should be able to lift it up. Now, the staggering thing again. If you're doing 3, you're going to skip 1 to do your next set of scales. So skip 1 and then do that. If you're doing 4, now if you're doing 4 to stagger, like the round edge, you'll need to skip 2 for your starting point. So as you can see, you work those 2 originally, then you skip the first 2, and then you work the next 4 for your next set of scales. Just always remember, however many pegs there are, find your middle and go however many pegs you need to go over to find the middle. Repeat the same concept for the rectangular edge as you did for the triangular edge for that stagger effect. Okay, off to tackle your designs. Happy looming!